a leading lawyer on service matters, and he has successfully fought such cases on absorption and the related matters. He's an advocate on record in the Supreme Court of India. We have heard you earlier also, and we were very delighted to take part in those deliberations. From there, we take it forward, and I request you to now take the floor, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Z. You very nicely summed up the plight which ad hoc teachers are undergoing in Delhi University. In my experience, this ad hocism itself is unconstitutional and against the mandate of provisions of Constitution. At many places, it violates preamble of Constitution, it violates fundamental rights 121, violates directive principles. If anybody who is very familiar with the constitutional mandate would very easily come to understanding of this fact that the state indulging into such activity of ad hocism in public employment at first place for a long period is a form of exploitation. And it's nowhere under the ken of, under the purview of the constitutional mandate. That is one. Secondly, a state perpetuating ad hocism in education is something which I would condemn, because no civilized society and a rational society would like to keep their teachers, which are mentors of the society, on tenterhooks for such a long time, where they themselves are afraid and scared of their own livelihood and not having a settled psychology to guide their words. No civilized society can afford that. If the practice of ad hocism is talked about, there may be some compelling need of a society or the state for some time to engage someone on ad hocism. But thus that kind of practice can never be allowed by no stretch of imagination in the field of education. And when a state indulges deliberately, repeatedly in such a practice, then I may term it not the failure of a state, but the failure of our judiciary to curb the state to indulge into such practices. The student and teachers of Indian polity would come to know that when we became independent and the constitution which we brought from 1935, the fundamental right chapter was inserted into our constitution to protect against the exploitation by the state of its people. And this kind of ad hocism in education, which the ad hoc teachers are suffering, shows the mindlessness of the establishment, maybe of current time or the past time, shows the mindlessness of the policymakers, and shows the callousness of the policymaker, where you want that your teachers should be at your mercy, be at your whimsical decisions. Instead of concentrating their mind on the subjects, they should concentrate on staging protest and dharna to save their livelihood and live a life in a deplorable state. So that's I would at first sight, I would say that it's the mindlessness of policymakers. But state is very infamous for its arbitrary decision, everybody knows it. And states, time and again, if they are not led by the people who have certain intellectual understanding and certain level of intellect to understand how society is to be led, then they do indulge into such kind of activity. As a lawyer, I look forward more from the courts and the judiciary to understand this phenomenon, which is going to rot the entire society. We are going to have a generations who are being led by the teachers who themselves fighting subconsciously always for their tenure of services. What kind of intellectual depth and profound knowledge we can expect from such teachers when you keep our teachers in such a tenterhooks position? That's the questions which arises to my mind. That's one aspect. Teachers may be not in our society. Globally, it is accepted norms. And one of our scholars has very aptly said that best of us becomes teacher and rest of us has to satisfy with something else. May not be true in our society, but globally it is true. And therefore, the teachers have been assigned a very different level in the society, and their cases and their service condition cannot be looked upon as a service condition of an ad hoc employee of a industrial house, cannot be taken to be an ad hoc appointment of a menial work, cannot be taken to be a ad hoc appointment of any technical work. So therefore, even as in terms of law, reading a legal pronouncement which denies the regularization rights to anybody who is working as a technician in any department, and then drawing a parallel with the job of a teacher, saying that since a technician has been denied the regularization, so we would do the same with the teachers. I do not think that any rational, reasoned, and a mind who has a profound study of things would consent to it. That is the one aspect I would say. Everybody, I think most of us has read Constitution repeatedly, and we know that we have a constitutional ideal of giving economic justice. That's a part of preamble. Preamble of the Constitution says about the justice, social, economic, and political. That's the three, one of the goals of having the Constitution with us. I'm asking to myself, and I may ask to the tomorrow if I go into the court, is it an economic justice you're giving to the citizens, keeping them an ad hoc appointment and the sword of Damocles always hanging on their head? Next year, they would be out of employment. Is it a way that the people who are expected to guide the entire society has become a puppet in the hand of some executives who makes a faulty policy and they keep on dangling, they keep on using them as a puppet at their mercy? It's the system they are having. Anybody, I don't know who sits in your executive councils, maybe a senior IAS officer. Those IAS officers who have been taught by the professors and lecturers of the university, and they have got that intellectual depth by which they qualify an examination, do they have that profundity to keep all that professors as canterhooks? Will they decide that how the generations of our society would go on? At first place, this is not mere for speaking today. I feel it that's a flagrant violation of the constitutional mandate. Now, if we take this aspect of right to livelihood, there has been a judgment of Olga Teles case where Supreme Court held the right to livelihood is a part of Article 21, right to life. Because if you take right to livelihood away, then essentially the right of life doesn't exist. So you take Article 21 away. If somebody says that I'm not taking your life away, but I'm taking only your livelihood away, it's a tantamount to saying that I'm taking your life away. Because that judgment says that if you take the right of livelihood away from somebody, then all other fundamental right becomes meaningless. So therefore, the tenure of services, the permanency of services, one of the ingredients of the Article 21. So by that definitions, by that interpretation of Article 21, the state and its instrumentality cannot be allowed to play with the terms and conditions of your services in such a manner. Now, what is the legal basis where the state is allowed to have a kind of temporary appointment? That is always with the view of exigency of a state where you are not in a position to have a regular appointment for just some time. Maybe for 1 year or 2 years, you enter into such ad hoc appointment, and then it is expected that you shall go on to make a regular appointment, not creating a situations where the people who are employed is always thinking that whether they'll be there or not next year. You can't be. Law doesn't allow such kind of arbitrary decision. Then what is the difference between a democratic society run by rule of law and a tyrannical society or pre-British era? It will be something that some of the people who we say that democratically appointed, they go and they take away all the rights as a citizen which we have and which the Constitution has given. Such kind of practice is completely antithetic to the constitutional goal of this country. By no stretch of imagination, an executive body or a government can be allowed to trample our right to live with decency in such a manner. Advocism is doing exactly the same. That's the one point. Then I'll refer to another aspect of the Constitution. So we may be clear about the way we can go tomorrow. I'll refer Article 41 for a moment of the Constitution. It says that the state shall, within the limits of its economic capacity and development, makes effective provision for securing the right to work, to education, and to public assistance in cases of unemployment, old age, sickness, disablement. Now I am asking whether this is a way that you are giving somebody the protection into the old age, somebody giving the protection of livelihood. The method which you are applying is completely in violation of Article 41. It's maybe a directive principle. Those who have read Indian polity, well, they understand that it may be not enforceable in the court, but the expectations of the constitution maker was that when a state acts, they have to act according to these principles. I'm reading another article, 42, provision for just and human condition of work and maternity relief. The state shall make provision for securing just and human condition of work and for maternity relief. This adhocism, I feel personally, whatever the knowledge I have of the constitution, is tyrannical, is anti-constitution, and no reasonable mind can ever agree to have this adhocism in place for such a long time. Now, I just refer to that why the teachers cannot be treated as a technician or any other worker of the industry or any instrumentality of the state, saying that this regularization relief has been denied to them, so teachers can't get it. I just referred to it. I'm just reading from one of the paragraphs on the judgments where the plight of teachers was dealt with by Justice Ravindra Bhatt, who is now a Supreme Court judge. And deliberating on the plight of teachers, he wonderfully writes in his judgment, which really catches my imagination also many a time. I don't stop myself thinking on that aspect. I'm reading from his judgment. This court states that it is useful to recollect in the context of the present case that the security of teachers' tenure of employment and their tenure as commensurate with the role they play in society was recognized long ago and restated in the International Labour Organization, ILO, United Nations Education, Social and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, recommendations concerning the status of teacher 1966, over 51 years ago. The recommendations noted that outlined inter alia the following objectives: recognizing the essential role of teacher in educational advancement and the importance of their contribution to the development of man and modern society. Concerns to ensure that teachers enjoy the status commensurate with this role. The recommendation substantially states as follows: stability of employment and security of tenure in the profession are essential in the interest of education as well as that of teacher and should be safeguarded even when changes in the organization of or within a school systems are made. Teachers should be adequately protected against arbitrary action affecting their professional standing or career. This is a judgment where the honorable judge was able to dwell on the special status as teacher enjoys in this society. And accordingly, this is a case where the court said they all deserve regularization and they have been given regularization in that case. Justice Bhatt was the leading judge in that case, now it's Supreme Court judge. So what I want to say today in this discussion and convey that there is nothing in law which prohibits the regularization or giving the permanent status to these teachers, nothing in law. Now I'm talking about one judgment which is offbeat repeated, and that judgment is read as a biggest handicap in the regularization, that judgment of Uma Devi, which due to having practiced this service law, I had an occasion to go through maybe 100 times, threadbare, word by word. Uma Devi judgment has said only 4 things. The first thing it says, prohibiting or precluding or redefining the powers of the High Court 226 for regularization, saying that whenever you order for regularization of services of someone without examining that whether their initial appointment has been a fair appointment through open competitions under the prevailing rule, you cannot order for regularization. Then saying this very low aspect, in other words, merely on the strength of service without examining that whether somebody's initial appointment was fair as per rules, you cannot order for regularization. This was the first law laid down by Uma Devi judgment, where it says that you have to look into the aspect of his initial appointment. That is the first law, so Uma Devi says. Now carving out an exception into that, realizing that in perpetuating this kind of practice, the state is responsible for that, because the citizen does not have an option. If you are advertising the post for ad hoc appointment, citizen doesn't have an option. Court said that those who have continued for 10 years and more without the intervention of the courts, like a stay ordinance and all that, even then they have not been recruited through open competition, they shall be regularized, those who have completed 10 years. And that procedure has to be carried in next 6 months. That was the second law propounded by the court. Third law in Uma Devi judgment, Supreme Court Constitutional Bench, says that henceforth the state shall not enter into ad hocism. The state shall appoint regular incumbents on a post which are sanctioned. That was the third point of law which was settled by the judgment, expecting that the state shall not enter into ad hocism. What is happening now, understand that you are referring, your first two point of law which was decided by Supreme Court, you are referring. Third one, which was an obligation on the state and instrumentality not to enter into ad hocism on a perennial post or nature, the post which is in nature a perennial one, that is completely ignored by the state. How could that be? How could you read the judgment of a Supreme Court in a piecemeal? Now, the fourth aspect which the Supreme Court has clarified in this judgment, that those whose initial appointment doesn't dehose the existing rule in Article 14 and 16, those who have been recruited through an open competition where all capable candidates had an opportunity to apply pursuant to advertisement, and then the existing rule has been complied, they are the fit case to be regularized at any point of time. That's the fourth law which has emanated from the Supreme Court judgment. Nowhere, I tell you, in Uma Devi judgment, I'm saying it with all responsibility, I have gone through the judgment at least 100 times. Nowhere this judgment says that there shall not be regularization of any ad hoc contractual employees henceforth. It only says that the regularization is prohibited only on the length of services without examining their initial appointment procedure. That's the law which has been laid down in Uma Devi. I say it with responsibility. Anybody who tomorrow reads something else can encounter me, can talk to me. Now, in the view of these four aspects of, I hear as a lawyer, I also condemned this decision for the reason that when you have propounded that there should not be a regularization of those who have not been appointed with a fair procedure, the Supreme Court should have come heavy and have set a policy in place that what should be the framework under which the ad hoc and contractual appointment should be done, until what period, and thereafter if the state violates that norm, then what should be the consequence. Supreme Court left that part, which I think as a practitioner of law should have addressed, because the issue, the trouble which Supreme Court wanted to mitigate, the trouble to the Supreme Court before this judgment was the High Court across the country, they used to give regularization order to any backdoor entries also, just thinking that they have worked for 10 years, whether they are backdoor entry or not, let them regularize. In the backdrop of that kind of condition, this Constitution Bench was formed. Now this Constitution Bench wanted to mitigate these circumstances and let down a law saying that there shall not be a regularization of those whose initial appointment is not fair. Supreme Court should have gone little at length to also set down the law that if the state is indulging into such kind of ad hocism, what should be the consequence. Supreme Court left that. That is one painful situation, which I, as a lawyer, understand. So therefore, there is no precisely a prohibition for regularization of those whose initial entry has been fair. I just make it little clear. There are three kinds of appointments in law. One is illegal, second is irregular, and third is regular. Now, the regular appointment, which you may be confusing, is not only qua the post regular, it is qua the procedure also. So the term regular you can use in two facets. One, whether the procedure adopted into your appointment was regular, or the second one, whether the post was regular. So what is emerging now after maybe 2006 was the Uma Devi judgment. It's now more than 14 years. Now what is emerging that if the process has been regular, they are terming, the court terming it as a substantive appointment. If the process has been fair, there is no legal lacuna, legal prohibitions to regularize those incumbent, and court can do that. Uma Devi judgment doesn't come forth into that. So therefore, that's aspect I am today trying to clarify, that there is no legal bar. Uma Devi judgment doesn't put a bar for regularization of those persons who have come through open competitions, those who are fulfilling minimum qualifications, and the existing rule have been fulfilled. Not at all. Now I am referring to two more judgments, which is the judgment of recent past. One judgment which you might have read, Chandra Mohan Negi judgment. That's also the teacher's appointment. That was a judgment where the teacher's appointment had taken place through the Mukhiya of that division, without advertisement. And this case came to Supreme Court last year, 2020. And the Supreme Court said that when the appointment of the incumbent is pursuant to a policy decision, then such an appointment cannot be ever termed to be a legal appointment. That's the Chandra Mohan Negi judgment. Anybody can go and read onto the Google. And then that was a situation, that was a case where the minimum qualification required for that post, most of the candidates were not fulfilled. However, subsequently, they fulfilled that condition. And one of eminent lawyer, Mr. Bhushan, Prashant Bhushan, was arguing against the regularization in that case. Anybody can read that. Court said that one thing, the appointment was a policy decision, and the person, though lacking in the educational qualification at initial appointment, they fulfilled the educational qualifications subsequently. And as on today, they have the essential qualification, and the state has extracted the services for such a long time. Now you cannot deny the regularization. That's the Chandra Mohan Negi judgment, which I think some of us may have read. The another judgment of Somesh Thapalial, which has come recently, that judgment is also for the lecturers of Hemanti Nandan Bahuguna University from Uttarakhand. There also, in the same way, they advertised the regular post. They kept on taking services of these incumbents for years together, maybe more than 10 years also. The Supreme Court said that you may have been carrying the nomenclature of the post to be contractual and ad hoc, but looking at the way they have been functioning and they have been appointed, their appointment seems to be substantive appointment. You cannot deny them the regularization, and the regularization benefit has been given to them. Someshwar Thapalial, the judgment's name is Someshwar Thapalial versus Vice Chancellor HNB Garhwal University and others. That's a judgment which was pronounced on date is 3rd September 2021. That's a recent judgment. Now, and the last discussion also had talked about one judgment of division bench which was upheld by the Supreme Court in Sachin Ambadas case. There also the similar way, the polytechnic lecturers were working for such a long time and they were denied that benefits of permanency. They went to the court. Court saw their initial appointment and gave the regularization mark. So as a lawyer, what I can say and convey that if the state is lacking the intention, which Mishra ji has very rightly highlighted, today the ad hocism has become mantra for the existing state. They want to implement this ad hocism in every possible way. And if this regime continues, then tomorrow, I don't think that except for some exceptional posts which cannot be ad hoc, they would go into ad hocism completely, unhold barred. So now this is a time, I do not know the other intricacies of your situations, because we cannot now wait for the state to act. This is too late. The current regime is not in that favor. I'm fighting one more case from Ambedkar University, if Vishraj is aware. There they regularize the services and then they deregularize. They regularize the services, and after 2 years of regularization, they have deregularized the services of those lecturers. I'm fighting in High Court. So this kind of practice is happening. I don't know who is the brain behind it and doing these completely unconstitutional things. So this is a time where you have to espouse your cause, and what we need is just one judge with a good understanding of this issue of regularization and with experience that would be suffice to get a release. See, in Supreme Court, time and again, you would find that different contradictory judgments coming. After Umadevi judgment, any judge, division bench, one division bench judgment is not binding on the other division bench. So therefore, after Umadevi judgment, the entire this issue, I would say, is completely unguided missile. It depends upon the judge. If someone has got a knack of understanding this issue, there would be a positive judgment. If someone doesn't have a knack, there would be a negative judgment. You'd be surprised, I may share you one judgment where Ravindra Bhatt went on to the extent of asking NCT government to firstly create sanction posts and then order for framing of recruitment rules, and then gave the order of regularizations. It's a 2014 judgment. If you want that, I can share. So here the problem is that now leaving it to the state, I don't know what kind of pressure you can create on them, but I can only assure you that there is certainly no legal impediment to consider your case. In case of Mishra ji said about Punjab, I tell you, in Himachal Pradesh, every 3 years, the ad hoc contractual employees are regularized. Every 3 years. I'm handling some cases from state of Haryana where they had framed a policy of regularization in 2014, which has now come in Supreme Court. And there was just little lacuna, because instead of mentioning it that they are regularizing the services of those who have come through open competitions or advertisement like that, what they did is that they framed the policy of considering everyone who has not been recruited through advertisement. So that was a small legal lacuna due to which the 2014 regulation policies in Supreme Court I am contesting on behalf of many instructors from Haryana. In Himachal Pradesh, every 3 years, they regularize the services of ad hoc and contractual employees. Every 3 years, and that never runs into legal trouble. Never runs into legal trouble. In Uttarakhand government, what they did is that they firstly brought their regulation policy in 2011. Then they had brought in in 2016, the last regulation policy they had brought in 2016. That was again the same fault which the Haryana government had done. So legally, I tell you that in case those whose appointment is through advertisement and all that process has been properly held, there is no legal impediment, this I can tell you. And Umadevi judgment doesn't come as a hurdle at all. The only thing is that we need a judge who understands these things, because now I am putting one more question, which will solve your all. Can they assure the society or the court that by the regular method of appointment, they would be recruiting much better and much experienced than these ad hoc lecturers who are working for 10 years? Can they? Because educational qualifications are same. You have been selected by a duly constituted committee. So when your entire exercise is not going to ill or not going to bring in a person who can be very easily said that they are highly, more intelligent than those incumbent who are functioning as a lecturer in the university, and they shall be something different, then what purpose it would serve to terminate the services midway of these persons who have been having a legitimate expectations against the government, against the institution. So therefore, these kind of things, I do not find any rational, I tell you. Judgments, Uma Devi never bars it. There is streams of judgments, some good judges considering it, some judges not understanding, not considering it, because to all respect to them, they might be finding it very voluminous to go through the sum and substance of the judgment of Uma Devi, because I had occasion to encounter Justice Joseph, who is now Supreme Court judge. He was then Chief Justice of Uttarakhand High Court. I was arguing one of the matters, and he is very good judge. He doesn't shy away from saying that I have not read the complete judgment. And we started saying, I said that it's irony, my lords, that a judgment which is creating havoc on the lives of thousands in this country. My lords, some of my lords does not get time to read the judgment completely. So he laughed at me. What do you want to say? My lords, that judgment never prohibits any regularization. Is it so? Because Lordship, the only one part, that's para 53 of the judgment is read, that is quoted, and by that quotations, regularizations, writ petitions are thrown away. Now, my lords, when you're taking a decision on the livelihood of somebody, which is going to impact the life of that person and his entire family, at least read the entire judgment. So, with all due respect, I say, my lords, most of the judges are not reading the judgments entirely. He laughed and he gave me relief into that matter. I was arguing for Ayurvedic doctors in that matter, and the state wanted to terminate them. Then he gave the stay on to the termination. So this is the current scenario, and I would now sum up, because if I go into the legalities of a judgment too long, I leave it to the persons to question if there is some confusion in their mind, so I can reasonably address that aspect also.
Thank you so much. I was so engrossed that I forgot to literally come up and take the floor. Mr. Pankaj Kumar had been so lucid in his presentation. And I think the kind of detailed explanations that you have given out, this not only brings hope to us, but also kindles the fire that has been created and burning for the absorption. And I'm sure that day is not far when we shall be able to take a very, not just a strong stand, but we'll be able to achieve that goal. We are very, very thankful to you for having, I know time is one major constraint, and with such a busy lawyer, it must have been a good stress and strain, but you overcame all that and you made sure that you gave us your full time. We are extremely grateful to you for this wonderful deliberation and presentation. Thank you so much, Mr. Pankaj Kumar.